Hey, what are you doing? The 16-year-old froze, her hand still touching the motorcycle helmet. The man behind her was 6'2", covered in scars and tattoos, the kind of person her mother warned her to avoid. But she had 18 folded notes in her pocket, and 13 months of hunger had taught her something. Sometimes the scariest-looking person is the only one brave enough to listen. She turned around, held out the paper with shaking hands. Please don't ignore this. What he read in the next 60 seconds would mobilize 180 Hells Angels across 3 states and expose a guardian who'd stolen from the dead, leaving a teenager to lose 32 pounds in 13 months, while living 3 miles away. Listen, before we dive into how this girl ended up in that parking lot, go ahead and subscribe. This channel tells stories about ordinary people who did extraordinary things when everyone else looked away. We think that matters. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's go back to where this really started. I tried 18 times before someone listened. Those were the 7 words Bryn Callahan said later when asked why she'd approached a biker covered in scars instead of calling the police. Because she'd already called the police. She'd called everyone. And they'd all ignored her. This is what happened on September 23rd at 7:47 p.m. in the gravel parking lot of Red Pine Truck Stop, the moment a desperate teenager and a Hells Angels sergeant-at-arms changed each other's lives forever. Let's go back 18 minutes to when Bryn made a decision that would either save her life or be the last mistake she ever made. The parking lot gate at Red Pine Truck Stop closed at 9 p.m. sharp. Every Saturday night, without exception, Ron Garrett, the overnight security guard, locked that gate whether you were inside or not. Bryn had exactly 18 minutes. She knew because she'd been standing behind a rusted pickup truck at the parking lot's edge for 11 minutes already, counting seconds in her head the way she did when the panic got too loud, watching the Iron Brotherhood Motorcycle Club's monthly meetup through gaps between parked cars. 18 motorcycles, all Harleys, all chrome and leather, and men who looked like they could break her in half without trying. This was insane. Bryn's hands clutched the 18 pieces of notebook paper she'd spent 3 hours writing that afternoon in her closet room, the converted storage space in Aunt Diane's trailer where Bryn slept on a thin sleeping bag with no mattress, no window, just a single light bulb and 48 square feet of moldy corners. 18 identical messages. Same careful handwriting. Same desperate plea. Same last chance. Because Diane was inside that truck stop bar right now. Bryn had seen the silver Lexus SUV in the lot, the one Diane bought 4 months ago with money that was supposed to be for Bryn's care, the one that cost more than most people in Red Pine made in a year. Diane came here every Saturday night to meet her boyfriend. She thought Bryn was locked in the trailer. She was supposed to be locked in the trailer. But tonight, for the first time in 6 weeks, Diane had forgotten to close the outside deadbolt completely. It hadn't clicked. And when Bryn tested the door at 7:15 p.m., it opened. She'd stared at that open door for 3 full minutes, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She could run. Just run. Flag down a car, beg someone for help, get as far from that trailer as possible. Except she'd tried that. 4 times she'd tried that. The first time was in May, 2 months after Mom died. Bryn called the CPS hotline from a neighbor's phone while Diane was at work. Told them everything. How Diane had pulled her from school, how she wasn't allowed in the kitchen, how Diane locked the cabinets and controlled every bite of food Bryn ate. A caseworker came. Michelle Brennan. Nice lady, professional, carried a clipboard. Diane showed her fake homeschool curriculum materials. Spoke in that warm, concerned voice she used in public, the one that made her sound like every caring aunt in every Hallmark movie. "Bryn's been through so much trauma," Diane said, her hand on Bryn's shoulder in a way that looked comforting, but felt like a warning. "Her mother's sudden passing. It's affected her emotionally. Sometimes she acts out, says things that aren't true because she's hurting." Michelle looked at Bryn with kind eyes. "Is that true, honey? Are you just having a hard time adjusting?" Diane's fingers tightened on Bryn's shoulder. Just slightly. Just enough. Bryn said what she'd been coached to say. "Everything's fine. Aunt Diane takes good care of me." The case was closed before the caseworker even left the driveway. That night, Diane locked Bryn in the closet room for 16 hours. No food, no bathroom breaks except the one she was allowed in the morning. "You embarrassed me," Diane said through the door. "Don't ever do that again." The second attempt was in July. Ron McKenzie, the neighbor 2 trailers down, saw Bryn one afternoon when Diane sent her outside to get groceries from the car. Bryn was visibly thinner by then, down maybe 15 pounds. Her jeans held up with a shoelace threaded through the belt loops because they wouldn't stay up anymore. Ron frowned. "You okay, kid? You getting enough to eat?" Bryn's mouth opened, the truth right there, ready to spill out. But Diane appeared in the doorway behind her. "Bryn has an eating disorder," Diane said smoothly, walking over with that concerned expression she did so well. "We're working with a doctor on it. Grief affects young people in different ways." Ron's face softened immediately. "Oh man, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to pry." "You're fine," Diane said. "We appreciate neighbors who care." She smiled at Ron, put her arm around Bryn, walked her back inside. The deadbolt clicked behind them. Ron never asked again. The third attempt was August. Janet Whitaker, Mom's best friend. The woman who used to take Bryn and Mom to the state fair every summer, who taught Bryn how to braid hair, who cried at Mom's funeral so hard she couldn't stand. Bryn saw her at the grocery store. Diane was picking up her prescription at the pharmacy counter, told Bryn to wait by the produce section. Janet came around the corner with her cart and stopped dead. "Bryn? Oh my God! Bryn, is that you?" Bryn looked different. She knew she did. 30 pounds lighter than the last time Janet saw her. Hollow cheeks, dark circles, that purple hoodie hanging off her like a tent. "Hi, Miss Janet." Janet's eyes filled with tears. "Sweetheart, are you okay? You look... Can we talk? Just you and me?" "We need to go." Diane's voice. Cold. Final. She appeared at Bryn's elbow, hand clamped on her arm just above the elbow, tight enough to bruise, hidden by the hoodie sleeve. "Janet, how nice to see you." "Diane, I just want to talk to Bryn for a minute. Bryn's not comfortable with that." Diane's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Grief is complicated. Seeing reminders of her mother is painful. I'm sure you understand. I'm her legal guardian, Janet. I decide who she speaks to. Don't contact us again." Diane steered Bryn toward the exit. Janet stood there in the produce aisle, frozen, holding a bag of apples, looking like she wanted to say something but didn't know what. She didn't follow them. She didn't call anyone. Bryn watched her through the store window, getting smaller and smaller as Diane's Lexus pulled away. The fourth attempt was 2 weeks ago. The school district sent an automated letter to Diane's address. Routine homeschool compliance check. They wanted to schedule a visit, verify educational progress. Diane responded with forged assessment documents, test scores Bryn never took, curriculum outlines for subjects she'd never studied, a glowing report about how well Bryn was doing. The district accepted the paperwork. No visit required. No one ever saw Bryn. So no. Running wouldn't work. Calling authorities wouldn't work. Asking respectable people for help wouldn't work. Diane had legal custody. Diane had documentation. Diane looked like a concerned guardian doing her best with a troubled teen, and Bryn looked like exactly what Diane said she was. Difficult, ungrateful, making things up for attention. The system believed Diane. Every single time. Which left Bryn standing in a parking lot at 7:49 p.m. on a Saturday night, staring at 18 motorcycles and the men who rode them. Men covered in tattoos and scars. Men who looked like every warning her mother ever gave her about strangers. Men society crossed the street to avoid. But here's what Bryn knew that society didn't. Respectable people had rejected her. Clean-cut families, elderly couples, church ladies who literally just left evening service and told her to honor her guardian when she begged for help. Maybe dangerous-looking people understood danger better than safe-looking people did. Maybe someone who scared others would be brave enough to scare Diane. Maybe, just maybe, the monster you could see was safer than the one wearing a cardigan and volunteering at the PTA. Bryn counted to 10. Breathed. Stepped out from behind the pickup truck. Her worn sneakers crunched on gravel. Too loud, but the bikers were talking and laughing. Didn't notice. She moved between parked cars, getting closer. 30 feet away. 25. The bikes were beautiful, chrome gleaming under parking lot lights, leather saddlebags. Each one, someone's pride. Bryn reached the first motorcycle. Her hands shook as she picked up the helmet sitting on the seat. Heavier than she expected. She tucked one folded note under the visor's padding where the rider would see it when putting the helmet on. Set it back down. Exactly where it was. Counted to 10. Moved to the next bike. Second note. Second helmet. Third. Fourth. Fifth. Her breathing was too fast. She was lightheaded. Hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Diane's one daily meal of pasta with no protein, no vegetables, nothing but carbs to keep her barely functioning. Sixth helmet. Seventh. The bikers were 12 feet away now. She could hear their conversations clearly. And then she tells me she got accepted to Michigan State, full scholarship. Man, that's incredible. You must be so proud. I cried like a baby, I'm not gonna lie. They sounded normal, happy, talking about someone's daughter going to college. 8th helmet, 9th. Her hands were shaking worse now, the papers rustling. She fumbled the 10th note, almost dropped it, caught it at the last second. Come on, just a few more. 11th helmet, 12th. Hey, what are you doing? Bryn's heart stopped. Male voice, deep, rough, right behind her. She turned slowly. The man standing 6 feet away was massive. 6'2", easily. Broad shoulders, gray-streaked beard, scar cutting through his right eyebrow. Forearms covered in tattoos. Military insignia, motorcycle club symbols, a name in script. Rebecca. Black leather vest with patches. Iron Brotherhood MC. Sergeant at Arms. His eyes weren't angry. They were assessing, taking in her oversized hoodie, her too thin frame, the way she held those papers like they were the only thing keeping her standing. Bryn's mind screamed, "Run," but her body knew she couldn't outrun him, couldn't outrun anyone. She was dizzy, malnourished, exhausted. This was it. Her last chance. The one that either worked or didn't. She held out one of the folded papers with a trembling hand. "Please don't ignore this." 7 words. That's all she had left. Holden Flint Mackenzie had been Sergeant at Arms for Iron Brotherhood MC, Montana chapter, for 11 years. His job was simple: protect the Brotherhood, handle threats, keep members safe. He'd handled bar fights, territorial disputes, legal problems, family crises. He'd served 2 tours as an Army Ranger in the 90s, survived things most people couldn't imagine. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for a 16-year-old girl who looked like she weighed maybe 90 pounds, standing between his brother's motorcycles at dusk, holding out a piece of paper with hands that shook so violently he could hear the paper rattling. His first thought? Someone's messing with our bikes. His second thought, when he got closer, that's a kid. His third thought, when he saw her face, that kid is terrified. Not of getting caught, of him specifically. She expected him to hurt her, and yet she was still standing there, still holding out that paper. Flint looked at her. Really looked. The hoodie was faded purple, youth large size, hanging to her knees now. Jeans held up with a shoelace, sneakers with soles separating from the uppers, duct tape on the left one. Pale blue eyes sunken into dark purple circles that weren't bruises, just exhaustion, malnutrition, the kind of tired sleep couldn't fix. Healing scrape on her right arm, fingernails bitten to the quick. Split lip, scabbed over, maybe 5 days old. She'd fallen, or been pushed, or tripped. And she was asking him, a 6'2" biker covered in scars and tattoos, please don't ignore this, like everyone else already had. Flint didn't take the paper yet. Instead, he lowered himself. Not kneeling, that was too vulnerable in a parking lot full of brothers, made you a target if something went sideways. But he shifted his stance, bent slightly, brought his 6'2" frame down until his face was closer to her eye level. Made himself less of a mountain, more of a hill. That simple movement, making himself smaller, seemed to surprise her. Her eyes widened just a fraction. "I'm reading it," Flint said quietly. "Right now. Not going anywhere?" He took the paper from her hand, gently. Let her release it when she was ready. Then he unfolded it slowly, deliberately, under the parking lot light. Positioned his body between her and the group of bikers behind him, giving her privacy, creating a barrier. The note was written in careful, small handwriting, each letter precise. The kind of writing that took time, because the person writing it knew this might be their only chance to be heard. "My name is Bryn Callahan. I'm 16 years old. My guardian is keeping me in a trailer, locked in a closet room with no heat, 1 meal a day. She's stealing my mother's trust fund, $287,000 insurance money and house sale. She's already spent $193,000 in 4 months on herself. I have evidence hidden in storage unit 912 at U-Store on Highway 2. The key is taped under the dumpster behind this building. I'm not lying. I'm not making this up. I'm dying and nobody believes me. I turn 18 in March 2024. If I don't make it that long, she inherits everything. Just like my grandmother in 2020. Same pattern. Please. I wrote this note 18 times. Someone has to care." Flint read it once. Slowly. Read it again. His jaw tightened. The muscle in his cheek jumped. He looked up at the girl. She was watching his face, desperate, terrified, waiting for him to do what everyone else had done. Doubt her, blame her, walk away. "How many bikes did you leave this on?" His voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of quiet that came right before action. 12, Bryn whispered. Her voice was rough, raspy, dehydrated. "I left notes on 12 helmets. I didn't know which one. Who would... I just needed someone to care enough to check." "Who's your guardian?" "My aunt. Diane Callahan Porter. She locked me in our trailer. I'm only here because she came to the bar tonight and forgot to close the deadbolt all the way. I have to be back before she leaves at 9 or she'll know I got out." She glanced at the parking lot entrance, at the gate that would close in 10 minutes. "Why are you asking bikers for help instead of police?" Bryn's laugh was bitter. Broken. "I tried police. I tried CPS. They call her first. She's my legal guardian. She shows them fake homeschool records and says I'm troubled. Then she punishes me when they leave." Her voice dropped, got quieter, more desperate. "But I heard her on the phone 3 weeks ago, September 5th. She was talking to her friend Carol. She said, 17 months, that's all I need. If she doesn't make it to 18, I inherit the full 94,000. She's waiting for me to not survive. And she did this before. To my grandma, in 2020. Same insurance pattern, same malnutrition. Grandma passed after 6 months living with Diane. Diane got $180,000. Bryn's hands were shaking worse now. She was swaying slightly on her feet. "I wrote everything down. Dates, names, dollar amounts, everything I heard. It's all in that storage unit. That's proof. Real proof. Not just my word against hers." Flint was quiet for 3 seconds. Bryn counted them. 1, 2, 3. Then he raised his right hand slightly, the universal "wait here" gesture, and turned toward the group of bikers behind him. "Church, Rev, Hammer, on me, now." His voice cut through the parking lot. Not yelling. Command voice, the kind of authority that expected instant obedience, and got it. 3 bikers detached from the group immediately, moving toward Flint with the synchronized efficiency of men who'd ridden together for years. They saw him standing with a terrified teenager. Their expressions shifted from casual to alert. Flint turned back to Bryn. "My name is Holden Mackenzie. Road name's Flint. I'm Sergeant at Arms for Iron Brotherhood MC. That means I handle threats to people under our protection." He pulled off his vest, the black leather with Iron Brotherhood patches, the sacred garment that non-members never touched, and put it around Bryn's shoulders. It was huge on her, hung to her knees, still warm from his body heat. "As of right now, you're under our protection. Your aunt doesn't touch you again. You don't go back to that trailer. We're getting your evidence from that storage unit, and we're bringing law enforcement who will actually listen. You understand me?" Bryn stared at him, at the vest on her shoulders, at the 3 bikers who'd appeared behind him, all watching her with expressions that had shifted from curiosity to something harder. Protection. "You wear that," Flint said quietly. "Nobody touches you. That's a promise 180 brothers deep." The 3 bikers, Church, Rev, Hammer, were staring at Flint like he'd lost his mind. Flint never took off his vest. Never. The cut stayed on unless you were sleeping or in the shower, and even then it was within arm's reach. But they saw his face. They knew that look. Something bad had happened to this kid, and they were about to fix it. Raymond Rev Sullivan, president of Iron Brotherhood MC, Montana chapter, former Army chaplain, 58 years old and built like he'd spent decades working construction, stepped forward. "What do you need?" Flint handed him the note. Rev read it once, passed it to Marcus Church Sullivan, his younger brother. Church read it, his jaw set. He was 52, former homicide detective with Seattle PD for 24 years. He'd seen this pattern before. Financial exploitation. Isolation. Vulnerable kid falling through cracks, while a guardian operated in plain sight using legal paperwork as camouflage. "Evidence location?" Church asked. "Storage Unit 912, U-Store on Highway 2, Flint said. "Keys taped under the dumpster behind this building. She says there's bank statements, emails, documentation of theft." "Guardians inside the bar right now?" Rev asked Bryn. She nodded. "Silver Lexus. She's here every Saturday night. Usually leaves around 9. Rev checked his watch. 7:53 p.m. 7 minutes until the gate closed. "Hammer," Rev said. Dale Hammer Brennan stepped forward. 47 years old, combat medic, Army veteran who'd served 3 tours in Iraq. He looked at Bryn with the professional assessment of someone who'd treated hundreds of casualties. "When's the last time you ate?" "Yesterday, afternoon." "How much weight have you lost?" 32 pounds. Since May." Hammer's expression didn't change, but something cold settled in his eyes. He'd seen malnutrition before. Knew what deliberate starvation looked like. "We're getting you to a hospital," Hammer said. "Tonight." "Not yet." Flint's voice was firm. "Evidence first. If we move before we have solid documentation, the guardian claims kidnapping, calls cops, produces legal custody papers. We need that evidence before we do anything else." Church nodded. "He's right. Without documentation, we're just bikers interfering with a legal guardian. With evidence, we're citizens reporting a crime." Rev looked at Bryn. "This storage unit, you trust the evidence is there?" "I put it there myself, June. Every bank statement Diane left on the counter. Every email I found when she left her laptop open. Everything." "How'd you get access to a storage unit?" "Paid cash, $50 for 3 months. I stole it from Diane's purse over 2 months, $5 at a time." Rev's expression softened just slightly. This kid had been planning her own rescue for months. Gathering evidence, hiding it, leaving notes on motorcycle helmets because every system designed to protect her had failed. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number. It rang twice. "Connor, it's Rever. I need you at Red Pine Truck Stop, now. Bring your laptop and every forensic tool you've got. We're documenting a crime scene. No, not a fight. Financial exploitation and child endangerment. I'll explain when you get here. 10 minutes? Make it 8. He hung up, looked at Flint. "Axe is on his way. He'll photograph everything, create digital backup, establish chain of custody." Connor. Axe Hayes. 34 years old, youngest member of the chapter, worked in cybersecurity for a defense contractor. If there was digital evidence, he'd preserve it properly. "I'm calling Wallace," Church said, already dialing. "We need someone with legal weight behind this." Wallace Bones Porter, 67 years old, club founder back in 1981, Korean War veteran. He had relationships with every law enforcement agency in 3 counties. When Bones spoke, cops listened. Flint looked at Bryn. "We're going to get that key from under the dumpster. We're going to that storage unit. We're going to photograph every single piece of evidence you've collected. And then we're going to make sure your aunt never gets within 50 feet of you again. But I need you to be brave for about 2 more hours. Can you do that?" Bryn's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "Good. Stay close to Hammer. He's going to make sure you're okay while we handle this." Rev was already moving toward his bike. "I'm calling the full chapter. Everyone within 50 miles needs to be here. We're going to need witnesses. Documentation. Presence. How many? Church asked. 60 from our chapter. Wyoming's got 55, they're 2 hours out. Idaho's got 65, they're 3 hours. We'll have 180 brothers here before midnight. The largest mobilization in Iron Brotherhood history. For a 16-year-old girl they'd met 4 minutes ago. Because that's what Brotherhood meant. At 8:04 p.m., Connor Axe Hayes pulled into Red Pine Truck Stop's parking lot, driving a black Jeep with enough camera equipment in the back to document a federal investigation. He was 34, the youngest brother in the Montana chapter, and he approached every job the same way he'd been trained in cybersecurity. Methodical, thorough, leave no gap in the chain of evidence. Flint met him at his Jeep. Storage facility, 3 miles north on Highway 2. We need every document photographed, cataloged, and backed up to cloud storage before we touch anything. Preservation of evidence, Axe said, already pulling out his Canon EOS R5 and portable LED lighting rig. Smart. What are we documenting? Financial exploitation, child endangerment, possible pattern homicide. Flint's voice was flat, professional. The way he sounded when emotion wasn't useful. Axe's hands paused on his camera bag for just a second. Then he nodded. Let's go. They took 3 vehicles. Rev drove his pickup truck with Bryn in the passenger seat, Hammer in the back, keeping eyes on her medical status. Flint rode his Harley. Axe followed in the Jeep. The U-Store self-storage facility on Highway 2 was the cheap kind. Chain-link fence, combination lock on the gate, rows of orange garage doors under flickering overhead lights. No security cameras, no attendant after 6 p.m. Perfect for someone hiding evidence they couldn't risk being found. Bryn directed them to the dumpster behind the main office. A rusted blue container that smelled like spoiled food and motor oil. She crouched down, reached underneath, felt along the metal lip until her fingers found the small brass key taped there with duct tape. Her hands were steadier now, having people believe her, having people act. It was like oxygen after months of suffocating. Storage Unit 912 was in the back row. Standard 10 by 10 unit, orange rolling door, padlock securing it. Bryn unlocked it, stepped back. You've been living in a closet room smaller than this, Flint said quietly, looking at the unit's dimensions. 48 square feet, Bryn confirmed. I measured once. Inside the unit was a cardboard box. That's it. No furniture, no belongings, just a single box from the post office, medium-sized, taped shut. Axe set up his lighting rig, illuminating the space with professional-grade LEDs. He photographed the exterior of the unit, the padlock, the box's position inside. Then he pulled on latex gloves. He kept them in his camera bag for exactly this reason, and carefully lifted the box out. Set it on a folding table he'd brought from his Jeep. Cut the tape with a blade. Opened it. Inside were manila folders. 5 of them, each labeled in Bryn's careful handwriting. Bank statements, emails, expense reports. Grandma Maggie overheard conversation. Axe photographed the box contents from multiple angles. Then, one by one, he removed each folder and documented every single page inside. The bank statements folder contained 17 months of documents. Trust account in Bryn's name. Carolyn Callahan's daughter. Established February 2022 after Carolyn's passing. Starting balance, $287,000. Life insurance payout, $150,000. Home sale proceeds, $137,000. Diane Callahan Porter listed as trustee until Bryn turned 18. Then the withdrawals started. March 2022, $11,000, April 2022, $11,000. May 2022, $11,000. June 2022, $15,000. July 2022, 15. August 2022, $15,000. September 2022, current, $15,000. Total withdrawn, $193,000. Current balance, $94,000. Axe photographed every statement, every transaction, every date. Church, the former detective, studied the statements over Axe's shoulder. "This is textbook financial exploitation," he said. "Consistent pattern. Escalating amounts. Guardian with legal access systematically draining trust fund meant for minors' care." "Where'd the money go?" Rev asked. Axe opened the expense reports folder. These were documents Diane had submitted to the trust administrator. Official paperwork justifying the withdrawals. Private tutoring for Bryn, $18,500 per month. Specialized medical care, $6,200 per month. Educational materials and therapy, $4,800 per month. Every single expense fabricated, because the emails folder contained proof. Printed emails from Ridgeline Elementary School showing Bryn had been enrolled in their free online homeschool program since March 2022. No private tutor, no specialized curriculum, just a student who'd logged in exactly 0 times in 6 months. Emails from Diane to the trust administrator. Bryn requires extensive therapeutic intervention due to behavioral issues following her mother's passing, requesting authorization for increased monthly educational expenses. Bryn's grief counselor recommends intensive treatment program. Cost is $6,200 per month, but absolutely necessary for her well-being. There was no grief counselor. There was no intensive treatment program. There was a 16-year-old girl locked in a closet, eating 1 meal a day, losing weight fast enough that her body was starting to shut down. "Credit card statements," Church said, pointing to another sheaf of papers. "These are recent, last 3 months." Diane's MasterCard, connected directly to the trust account. $18,400. Tiffany & Company, jewelry purchases. $31,200. 3 Montana casinos, Silver Star, Lucky Draw, Golden Nugget. $12,800. Serenity Spa and Resort, luxury spa packages. $8,900. Nordstrom, designer clothing. None of it for Bryn. All of it for Diane. "She spent more on jewelry in 1 month," Hammer said quietly, "than most families spend on food in a year, while this kid was starving." Axe kept photographing. Click, click, click. Every page documented, every transaction recorded. Then he opened the Grandma Maggie folder. This was the pattern proof. Margaret Maggie Callahan, Diane and Carolyn's mother, Bryn's grandmother. Passed away February 2020, age 71. Death certificate listed cause as natural causes, malnutrition and dehydration related to advanced age. But the timeline told a different story. July 2019. Maggie updated her life insurance policy. Previous beneficiaries, both daughters, split 50-50. New beneficiary, Diane only. Policy amount, $180,000. August 2019. Maggie moved in with Diane Hung for care during her golden years. September 2019. Neighbor's note. Handwritten, Bryn had found it in Mom's belongings after she passed. Carolyn, I saw your mother at the store yesterday. She's lost so much weight. I'm worried. Diane wouldn't let me speak with her alone. Something feels wrong. December 2019. Carolyn tried to visit Maggie. Diane blocked the visit. Said Maggie was too tired for company. January 2020. Adult Protective Services received a call. They visited Diane's home. Diane showed documentation of appropriate care. Case closed. February 2020. Maggie passed away. 3 weeks later. Diane collected $180,000. Jesus Christ, Church breathed. She's done this before. Same method, Flint said, his voice like gravel. Food deprivation, isolation, system manipulation, financial benefit. She waited for her own mother to starve to death, collected the insurance money, and then did the exact same thing to her niece. The final folder was labeled Overheard Conversation. Inside was a notebook. The kind high school students use. Bryn's handwriting filled 3 pages. Dated September 5th, 11:30 p.m. She'd written down every word of the phone call she'd overheard through her cracked-open closet door. Diane's exact words. No, Carol, you don't understand. I'm handling it perfectly. The caseworker bought the whole grieving teen story. She's fine. Skinny, yeah. But that's the point. Natural causes, you know? Malnutrition, they'll call it failure to thrive or something. Happens to orphans all the time. 17 months. That's all I need. She turns 18 March 2024. That's when she gets legal access. But if she doesn't make it there, I'm next of kin. I inherit the full remaining balance. 94,000 left, Carol. After this clears, I'm thinking Bali. Or maybe that cruise to Greece you mentioned. Just like when Mom passed, remember? Nobody questioned that either. Elderly woman stops eating, nature takes its course. Same principle. Bryn had written timestamps, details about background noise, TV playing in the living room, Diane's tone of voice, how long the pauses were when Carol responded. She'd created a contemporaneous record of a confession to planned homicide through starvation. This isn't just financial exploitation, Church said. This is attempted murder with a pattern. If we can prove Maggie's case was suspicious, we're looking at elder abuse charges on top of everything else. Rev's phone rang. He stepped outside the storage unit to answer. Came back 2 minutes later. Bones is bringing Sheriff Tom Lattimore. They'll be here in 40 minutes. Bones vouched for us. Told Tom we've got solid evidence of guardian abuse and we've preserved chain of custody. Tom's bringing a detective and a CPS supervisor. Good, Church said. We need law enforcement to see this before the guardian knows we're involved. Once she realizes her niece is gone, she'll start destroying evidence. What time does the bar close? Flint asked Bryn. Diane usually leaves around 9, but sometimes she stays until 10 if her boyfriend is there. Flint checked his watch. 8:47 p.m. We've got maybe an hour before she notices Bryn's missing, less if she goes home early. Then we move fast, Rev said. Axe, how long to finish documentation? 15 minutes. I'm uploading everything to secure cloud storage as I go. Even if someone destroys the physical evidence, we've got digital backup. Do it. While Axe worked, Church made calls. He contacted the trust administrator, the financial company managing Bryn's account, and informed them of suspected fraud. They immediately froze the account. Diane couldn't withdraw another cent. He contacted Adult Protective Services and requested they pull the 2019-2020 case file on Margaret Callahan. The case Diane had manipulated. The case that closed 3 weeks before Maggie passed away. He contacted Ridgeline Elementary School and confirmed Bryn's enrollment in their free online program, proof that Diane's private tutoring expenses were fabricated. Every call created a paper trail. Every contact was another nail in Diane's coffin. By 9:15 p.m., Sheriff Tom Lattimore arrived with Detective Sarah Chen and CPS Supervisor Barbara Wright. Bones rode with them. 67 years old, leather vest with Iron Brotherhood founder patch, the kind of presence that made cops either respect you immediately or hate you on sight. Tom Lattimore fell into the respect category. He'd known Bones for 30 years. Knew that when Bones called about a child in danger, you showed up. Church handed Tom the storage unit key. Everything's inside. We've documented chain of custody. Haven't touched anything except with gloves. Former Seattle homicide detective. I know the protocol. Tom looked at Church, then at the assembled bikers, then at Bryn standing next to Hammer wearing Flint's vest. You the girl who left the notes? Bryn nodded. You've been living with Diane Callahan Porter? In her trailer. Unit 14C, Ridgeline Trailer Park. She locked me in a closet room. 48 square feet, no heat. 1 meal a day. Barbara Wright, CPS Supervisor, 59 years old, seen everything twice. Looked at Bryn with the kind of assessment that comes from 2 decades evaluating abuse cases. She saw the weight loss, the dark circles, the healing injuries, the way Bryn stood close to the bikers like they were the only safe thing in her world. When's the last time you saw a doctor? 18 months ago. School physical. Before my mom passed. We're getting you to a hospital tonight, Barbara said firmly. After we secure this evidence. Detective Chen, sharp-eyed, early 40s, meticulous, entered the storage unit with Tom. They spent 20 minutes reviewing every document Axe had photographed. When they came out, Chen's expression was grim. This is felony financial exploitation, child endangerment. If we can prove the grandmother's case was suspicious, we're adding elder abuse and possibly negligent homicide. The overheard conversation about waiting for the niece to not survive, Tom said. That's evidence of intent. Premeditated neglect resulting in harm. What do you need from us? Bones asked. Statements from everyone who interacted with the victim tonight. Timeline of events. Then step back and let us handle arrest and prosecution. One more thing, Church said. He pulled out his phone, showed Tom a number. This is Michelle Brennan, CPS caseworker who closed Bryn's case in May. She needs to answer why she accepted the Guardian's story without following up. Tom nodded. We'll interview her. Then his radio crackled. Dispatch to Sheriff Lattimore. We've got a 911 call from Diane Callahan Porter, 2847 Cottonwood Drive. She's reporting her 16-year-old niece missing. Says the girl ran away. Requesting immediate search. Tom looked at Bryn. That your guardian? That's her. He pressed his radio. Dispatch, inform caller we've located the minor. She's safe. We're investigating allegations of guardian mistreatment. Send back up to my location, U-Store facility on Highway 2. Then he looked at his detective. Chen, call Judge Morrison. We need emergency protective custody order and a warrant for Diane Callahan Porter's arrest. On what grounds? Felony child endangerment. Financial exploitation of a minor, elder abuse related to suspicious death of Margaret Callahan in 2020. Tell Judge Morrison we've got documented evidence and witness testimony. I want that warrant signed tonight. Chen was already dialing. Now, you might be thinking this is where 180 Hell's Angels roar up to Diane's house, surround her with motorcycles, and terrify her into confession. That's the story you expected, isn't it? But here's what actually happened. Because revenge isn't justice, and intimidation isn't protection. The brothers understood something most people don't. When you're dealing with someone who's manipulated legal systems, who's fooled caseworkers and school districts and neighbors. You don't give them ammunition to claim they were threatened. You don't give them any excuse to play victim. You do it by the book. With witnesses, with documentation, with law enforcement leading. At 9:52 p.m., the Wyoming chapter arrived. 55 motorcycles rolling into Red Pine, rumble like distant thunder. At 10:34 p.m., Idaho chapter showed up. 65 more bikes. They didn't go to Diane's house. They went to Red Pine Community Center parking lot, a public space 3 blocks from the sheriff's office. And they waited. 180 motorcycles parked in perfect formation. Engines off. Brothers standing beside their bikes. Leather vests reflecting streetlights. Silent. Disciplined. Present. Word spread through town within minutes. Hell's Angels were here. All of them. Something big was happening. Frank Miller, the trailer park manager who'd rented Unit 14C to Diane Callahan Porter, was the first witness Detective Chen interviewed. He was 71 years old, managed a Ridgeline trailer park for 19 years. He'd seen Bryn exactly 8 times in 6 months. Chen asked him, "Did you ever hear the minor, Bryn Callahan, calling for help or expressing distress?" Frank's hands shook as he answered. "Twice, maybe 3 times. I heard crying from Unit 14C, late at night. Once I heard her yelling something like, 'Please,' or 'I'm sorry,' I couldn't tell exactly." "What did you do?" I didn't do anything. Diane, Ms. Callahan Porter, she worked at the elementary school. Real respectable lady. She told me Bryn was troubled. Grief from losing her mother. Said the girl acted out sometimes, but she was handling it." "You believed her?" "Yes, I believed her." Frank's voice broke. "She seemed so caring, and I didn't want to intrude on family business. I thought—" He couldn't finish. "You thought someone else would handle it?" Chen said quietly. Frank nodded, started crying. 71 years old, crying because he'd heard a child suffering and convinced himself it wasn't his problem. Beverly Martin, church volunteer coordinator, 63 years old, was the second witness. She'd worked with Diane on the Meals on Wheels program every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 years. "Diane was wonderful," Beverly said, then caught herself. I thought she was wonderful. She coordinated donations, organized volunteers. She even ran the End Childhood Hunger Drive at Ridgeline Elementary for 8 years. Did she ever mention her niece? Once or twice. She said Bryn was grieving, having a hard time. She seemed so patient with the situation. So caring. Did you ever meet Bryn? No. Diane said Bryn needed privacy during this difficult time. I respected that. Chen showed her the photographs Axe had taken tonight. Bryn at 87 pounds. Dark circles. Healing injuries. Beverly's face went white. Oh my God. This is what was happening while Ms. Callahan Porter was coordinating your hunger drive. Beverly covered her mouth with her hand. We raised money to feed children, and she was starving her own niece. She stood in our church and talked about compassion, and I never questioned it. I never asked to meet Bryn. I just believed— You believed the mask, Chen said. Beverly nodded. Couldn't speak. Patricia Edmonds, principal at Ridgeline Elementary, 54 years old, was the third witness. She'd worked with Diane for 11 years. Diane was Employee of the Month twice. She was exemplary, Patricia said. Professional, organized. The children loved her. Parents trusted her. I trusted her. She pulled her niece from school in March, claimed she was homeschooling. Did you follow up? We sent the standard compliance letter in September. Diane responded with assessment documents showing Bryn was progressing well. We accepted the paperwork. Did you ever see Bryn in person after March? No. Did you ask to? Patricia's silence was answer enough. Chen leaned forward. A child was removed from your school's system. She was supposedly being homeschooled by a guardian who worked in your building. And in 6 months, none of your staff thought to check on her in person? We followed protocol, Patricia said, but her voice was hollow. The documentation was complete. We had no reason to suspect. You had every reason to suspect. You just didn't want to see it. The fourth witness was anonymous. The CPS caseworker who'd closed Bryn's case in May. She spoke to Barbara Wright, the CPS supervisor, privately. I followed standard procedure, she insisted. I interviewed both the guardian and the minor separately. I observed the home. There were no visible indicators of neglect. The guardian provided educational documentation. The minor stated she was being cared for appropriately. Did you see the room where the minor was sleeping? Silence. Did you verify the educational documentation with the school district? Silence. Did you follow up after the initial visit? We close cases when there's no evidence of abuse. There was evidence, Barbara said, her voice hard. A malnourished child. Isolation. A guardian who controlled all access. You closed the case because it was easier than investigating further. The caseworker's hands were shaking. I have 43 active cases. I can't spend weeks on every report that comes in. This child called your hotline and told you she needed help, and you believed the adult who was hurting her instead of the child asking for rescue. That's not protocol. That's failure. At 11:47 p.m., Judge Morrison signed the Emergency Protective Custody Order and the arrest warrant. Detective Chen, Sheriff Lattimore, and 2 deputies drove to 2847 Cottonwood Drive, Diane Callahan Porter's house, the nice one in the good neighborhood 4 miles from the trailer where she'd imprisoned Bryn. The lights were on inside, TV flickering through the front window. Tom knocked. Sheriff's Department, open up. 30 seconds passed. Then the door opened. Diane Callahan Porter stood there in sweatpants and a cardigan, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She looked confused, concerned, exactly like a worried guardian should look when police show up at midnight. Sheriff Lattimore? Thank God. Did you find Bryn? I've been so worried. She ran away again. She does this sometimes when she's upset, but I'm terrified something will happen to her. Ma'am, we've located your niece. She's safe. She's provided us with information about her living situation. Diane's expression shifted, just slightly. The concern became something harder. What kind of information? We have a warrant for your arrest. Tom held up the document. Felony child endangerment, financial exploitation of a minor, elder abuse related to the death of Margaret Callahan. You're coming with us. Diane's face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Shock, rage, calculation. Then the mask came back. This is ridiculous. Bryn is troubled. She makes things up for attention. I've been trying to help her. Turn around. Hands behind your back. This is a mistake. I'm her legal guardian. I have documentation. Ma'am, turn around now. Diane was still talking, still playing the caring aunt, when Deputy Miller put her in handcuffs. She was wearing fuzzy slippers. Her nails were freshly manicured. There was a half-eaten bowl of ice cream on her coffee table. She looked like any middle-aged woman having a quiet evening at home, except her niece had been locked in a closet 3 miles away, eating 1 meal a day, slowly dying, while Diane sat in this comfortable house watching TV and eating ice cream with money stolen from a dead woman's daughter. "You're making a huge mistake," Diane said as they walked her to the patrol car. "When my lawyer hears about this, when the court sees that I'm the victim here—" "Save it for your arraignment," Tom said. They put her in the back of the car, drove her to county jail, booked her at 12:23 a.m. Charges: felony child endangerment, financial exploitation of a minor, amount exceeding $50,000, elder abuse related to suspicious death, fraud, false imprisonment, bail recommendation, $250,000. A woman who'd stolen $193,000 and spent it on casinos and jewelry wouldn't be making bail anytime soon. At the community center parking lot, Rev stood on the bed of his pickup truck and addressed 180 brothers. "The girl is safe. Evidence is documented. Sheriff has the suspect in custody. Our job here is done." Silence. Then one brother raised his hand. Then another. Then all of them, 180 hands in the air. Not applause, not celebration, just acknowledgement. We saw. We acted. We protected. Rev nodded once. "Ride safe, brothers." Engines roared to life, 180 motorcycles starting almost in unison. The sound rolled through Red Pine like thunder, waking half the town. They rode out in formation, disciplined, controlled. Exactly the way they'd arrived. Within 30 minutes, the parking lot was empty except for tire marks and the faint smell of motor oil, like they'd never been there at all. Except one girl was safe, and one predator was in jail. And that was the whole point. At 1:47 a.m., Bryn Callahan sat in an emergency room at Red Pine Medical Center wearing a hospital gown 3 sizes too large and Flint's leather vest over top of it because she wouldn't let anyone take it off. Hammer stayed with her through every test. Blood work, chest X-ray, nutritional assessment, full physical examination. Dr. Sarah Kim, the attending physician on overnight shift, spoke quietly to Hammer in the hallway while Bryn was getting her X-ray. "Severe malnutrition. Her body's been in starvation mode for months. Another 3 weeks, maybe 4, and we'd be looking at organ failure. Heart, liver, kidneys, everything starts shutting down when the body cannibalizes itself for that long." "What's the treatment plan?" "Hospital admission for at least 72 hours. Careful refeeding. Her system can't handle normal food quantities yet. IV fluids, vitamin supplementation, then outpatient monitoring with a nutritionist for the next 6 months minimum." Hammer nodded. He'd seen refeeding protocols in field hospitals. Knew how delicate the process was. Rush it, and you could cause more damage than the starvation itself. "She's going to recover?" "Physically, yes. With proper care and time. Emotionally, Kim glanced through the window at Bryn, who was sitting on the exam table, thin arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. "That's going to take longer." Barbara Wright, the CPS supervisor, appeared in the emergency room at 2:15 a.m. with emergency custody papers and a foster placement lined up. She sat down next to Bryn's hospital bed. "Sweetheart, we're placing you in protective custody. That means you're not going back to your aunt. Ever. We have a foster home ready for you. Karen and Jim Bradshaw, they live 20 minutes from here. They have experience with medical foster care. They're good people." Bryn looked at Barbara with those pale blue eyes that had seen too much for 16 years. What if Diane gets out of jail? "She won't," Barbara said firmly. "Bail's set at $250,000, and even if somehow she made bail, there's a restraining order. She comes within 500 feet of you. She goes straight back to jail. You understand?" You're protected. For how long? Until you're 18, that's 17 months. And honestly, with the charges she's facing, Diane's looking at significant prison time. She won't be out in 17 months. She won't be out in 17 years. Bryn processed that. Then, what about the money? The trust fund? Frozen. The court appointed a new administrator this afternoon. Someone from County Social Services who has zero connection to Diane. Every transaction will be reviewed. Any legitimate expenses for your care will be covered. The rest stays protected until you turn 18. How much is left? $94,000. We're pursuing asset recovery, selling things Diane bought with your money that she doesn't have legitimate claim to. The Lexus, the timeshare, jewelry she purchased. We'll get back what we can. Bryn nodded slowly. Can I stay here? At the hospital, I mean. Not go to the foster home tonight. You're admitted for observation. You'll be here at least through the weekend. The Bradshaws will visit tomorrow so you can meet them before placement. No pressure. Just an introduction. Okay? Barbara squeezed her hand gently. You did everything right, Bryn. You gathered evidence. You found someone who'd listen. You saved yourself. I want you to remember that. Church, the former Seattle detective, spent the next 3 days building the prosecution case with Detective Chen. They pulled Margaret Callahan's death certificate from 2020, reviewed the Adult Protective Services case file, interviewed neighbors who remembered Maggie losing weight, being isolated, dying suspiciously fast after moving in with Diane. They couldn't prove Maggie's death was homicide. Too much time had passed, no autopsy, body cremated. But they could prove a pattern, financial motive, same methods, same isolation tactics. The DA charged Diane with elder abuse in connection with Maggie's death. Not murder, but abuse that contributed to her passing. Combined with the charges related to Bryn, Diane was looking at a trial that would destroy her completely. Her lawyer tried to negotiate, wanted to plead down to lesser charges. The DA refused. Your client systematically starved a child for over a year while stealing nearly $200,000 meant for that child's care. And there's evidence she did the same thing to her own mother. We're going to trial. Axe, the cybersecurity specialist, worked with the trust administrator to trace every dollar Diane had spent. The Lexus, purchased with trust funds, seized by the court, sold at auction. Proceeds, $48,000 returned to Bryn's trust. The timeshare in Arizona, purchased with trust funds, seized, sold. Proceeds, $39,000 returned. Jewelry from Tiffany, most of it recovered from Diane's house, sold. Proceeds, $14,000 returned. Designer clothing, spa packages, casino losses, those couldn't be recovered. Gone. But between asset seizures and the remaining trust balance, Bryn's account was rebuilt to $195,000. Not the original $287,000, but enough to pay for college, housing, a future. Axe delivered the account statement to Bryn personally at the Bradshaw foster home 3 weeks after her rescue. This is yours, he said. Protected. Nobody can touch it except you, and not until you're 18. But the court authorized a monthly stipend for your expenses, clothes, school supplies, whatever you need. The Bradshaws will help you manage it. Bryn stared at the number on the page. $195,000. My mom wanted me to go to college, she said quietly. She used to talk about it all the time. What I'd study. Where I'd live. Then you'll go to college, Axe said. Your mom made sure of that. She set up that trust for you. Diane tried to steal it, but we got it back. Rev, the club president and former chaplain, visited Bryn every Saturday afternoon for the first 2 months. Not to talk about the case or the trial or Diane, just to talk about normal things, about her favorite books, about what she wanted to do after high school, about rebuilding a life that felt worth living. "You know what I learned in the Army?" Rev said one Saturday, sitting across from Bryn at the Bradshaw's kitchen table, drinking coffee Karen had made. "Survival is the first step. But living, actually living, that's the hard part. That's the work." "I don't know how to do that," Bryn admitted. "I spent 13 months just trying not to die. I don't know what comes after. After comes one day at a time. You wake up, you eat breakfast, you go to school, you do homework, you make one friend, then two, then maybe you try something new, art class or track or whatever interests you. Small things, normal things. What if I can't do normal? Then we figure it out together. You've got 180 brothers who made a promise to protect you. That doesn't end just because Diane's in jail. You need help with homework. You call church. He's got 2 master's degrees. You need someone to teach you to drive? You call me. I taught 3 kids, and they all passed first try. You need anything, you call. We're not going anywhere." Bryn looked at him. "Why? Why do you care this much about someone you don't even know?" Rev was quiet for a long moment. "I lost someone once," he said finally. "Long time ago, before I started the club. A young person who needed help and didn't get it because the adults around them were too busy, too scared, too convinced it wasn't their problem. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just be alive. Just build the life your mom wanted for you. That's how you honor the people we lost, by making sure their story doesn't happen again." 3 months after her rescue, Bryn enrolled at Red Pine High School. The Bradshaws drove her on the first day. Karen walked her to the main office, helped her get her schedule, made sure she knew where the counselor's office was. "You need me to stay?" Karen asked. Bryn looked at the hallways full of teenagers who'd never slept on subway grates, who'd never counted calories because there weren't enough, who'd never hidden evidence in storage units because no one would believe them. "I think I'm okay." "Text me if you're not." "I will." Bryn walked into her first period class, American History, and sat in the back row. She was still thin, but not dangerously so anymore. 87 pounds had become 98, then 104, then 109, getting closer to healthy every week. She'd bought new clothes with her stipend, jeans that fit, a green sweater Karen helped her pick out, sneakers without duct tape. But she kept the purple hoodie, washed it, hung it in her closet at the Bradshaw's house. She didn't wear it anymore, but she wasn't ready to let it go. The history teacher, Mr. Patterson, introduced himself to the class. "We're starting a unit on civic responsibility today. The idea that citizens have an obligation not just to follow laws, but to actively participate in protecting each other. I want you to think about a time when someone stood up for something they believed in, even when it was difficult. We'll discuss examples on Wednesday." Bryn thought about Dorothy Henderson, about Flint, about 180 motorcycles showing up because one person decided a scared kid mattered. She thought about writing 18 notes and hoping just one person would read one. She thought about how close she'd come to becoming another statistic, another vulnerable kid who fell through cracks while adults looked away. After class, a girl approached her. Blonde hair, friendly smile, probably a junior. "Hey, you're new, right? I'm Emma. If you need help finding your classes or whatever, just let me know." "Thanks, I'm Bryn." "Cool. See you around." It was a small thing, a moment of kindness that most people wouldn't even notice. But Bryn noticed, because she'd spent 13 months being invisible, and now people saw her. She was visible. Safe. Real. The trial happened in January, 4 months after Bryn's rescue. Diane pleaded not guilty to all charges. Her lawyer argued she'd been trying her best as a guardian, that Bryn was troubled and difficult, that the financial withdrawals were legitimate expenses. The jury didn't buy it. Church testified about the evidence found in the storage unit. The systematic theft. The fabricated expense reports. The pattern connecting Maggie's death to Bryn's situation. Dr. Kim testified about Bryn's medical condition at intake. The severe malnutrition that would have been fatal within weeks. Barbara Wright testified about the system failures. How Diane had manipulated caseworkers, school administrators, neighbors. Frank Miller, the trailer park manager, testified about hearing Bryn crying and doing nothing. Beverly Martin, the church volunteer, testified about working alongside Diane for years and never suspecting. Patricia Edmonds, the school principal, testified about accepting fake homeschool records without verification. And Bryn testified. She sat in the witness box wearing a navy blue dress Karen helped her pick out, her hands folded in her lap, and told the jury everything. The closet room, the locked cabinets, the single meal of pasta, the systematic isolation, the overheard phone call about waiting 17 months for her to not survive. Diane's lawyer tried to discredit her, suggested she was lying, exaggerating, making things up. Bryn looked at Diane directly and said, "You told your friend Carol that if I didn't make it to 18, you'd inherit everything and go to Bali. Those were your exact words. September 5th, 11:30 p.m. I wrote them down that night because I knew no one would believe me without proof. But I have proof. It's all in those documents. Every dollar you stole. Every lie you told. Everything." The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing: 17 years in state prison. No eligibility for parole for 10 years. Asset recovery ordered. Restitution payments. Restraining order made permanent. When the verdict was read, Diane's face went white. She looked at Bryn like she couldn't believe this was happening, like she'd truly convinced herself she'd get away with it. Bryn looked back at her and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, not fear. Just the quiet certainty that Diane could never hurt her again. 16 months later, Bryn Callahan turned 18 years old on March 3rd, 2024. The Bradshaws threw her a party at their house. Small gathering, just family, a few friends from school, and 5 bikers who showed up wearing their vests and carrying a cake that said, "Happy birthday, kid." Flint, Rev, Church, Hammer, Axe. The brothers who'd been there from the beginning. Bryn had gained back all the weight she'd lost, plus 5 pounds. Under 24 pounds. Healthy. Strong. Her hair was longer now, shiny from actually getting enough nutrients. The dark circles under her eyes were gone. The split lip had healed months ago. The scrape on her arm was just a faint scar you could barely see. She looked like a normal 18-year-old. Because she was. After cake, Flint pulled her aside. "Got something for you." He handed her a package wrapped in brown paper. Bryn opened it carefully. Inside was a motorcycle helmet. Black with scratches. Faded iron Brotherhood sticker on the side. Padding soft from years of use. Flint's helmet. The one where she'd placed her 6th note on September 23rd, 16 months ago. "This is where you left your note," Flint said quietly. "I kept it. The note's still tucked in the visor. I never took it out. Figured someday, when you were ready, I'd give it back to you." Bryn held the helmet carefully, felt the weight of it. "I thought you needed this back." "I don't. You saved your own life with those notes. This helmet was part of that. Now it's yours." He paused. "You got plans after graduation?" "College, Montana State, social work degree. I want to help kids who are where I was." Flint smiled. It was rare. He didn't smile often. But when he did, it transformed his whole scarred, weathered face. "Your mom would be proud of you." "I think so too." This story isn't really about motorcycles or trust funds or courtroom victories. It's about visibility. For 13 months, Bryn Callahan was invisible. She sat in that trailer closet. She lost weight. She cried where neighbors could hear. She tried to tell authorities and respectable people and church volunteers, and almost everyone who saw her chose to look away. Some noticed, some worried. Some even felt uncomfortable. But only one person acted. Flint McKenzie didn't have special training for recognizing child endangerment. He wasn't a social worker or a therapist or a mandated reporter. He was a biker who saw a scared kid touching his motorcycle and made one simple choice: stop and listen. That's it. That's the whole difference between Bryn surviving and Bryn becoming another tragic statistic. He paid attention. He believed her. He refused to ignore what he'd seen, even though ignoring it would have been easier. And here's what that means for you, wherever you're watching this. You don't need 180 motorcycles to change someone's story. You don't need a leather vest or a law degree or specialized training. You need to pay attention. You need to care enough to ask uncomfortable questions. You need to believe people when they tell you they're in danger. There are Bryns everywhere. In your town, in your neighborhood, at your workplace, in your school, in your family. People who are trying desperately to survive while systems fail them. People who are screaming for help in ways that don't look like screaming. Maybe it's a coworker who's lost dramatic amounts of weight and won't talk about home. Maybe it's a child who flinches when adults raise their voice and always wears long sleeves even in summer. Maybe it's a neighbor whose guardian speaks for them constantly and never lets them talk alone. The signs are there. The question is, are you looking? Bryn wrote 18 notes before someone read one. 18 attempts to be heard. How many people saw those notes in helmet visors and threw them away without reading? How many assumed, not my problem? Flint was her 18th chance, and he took it. You could be someone's 18th chance, or their first. If you see something wrong, say something. If a child tells you they're scared, believe them. If someone's story doesn't add up, ask questions. If you know in your gut that something's not right, trust that instinct. Yes, you might be wrong. You might embarrass yourself. You might make things awkward, but you might save a life. Diane Callahan Porter is serving 17 years in Montana State Prison. She was convicted on all charges. She won't be eligible for parole until 2034. Long after Bryn has built a life Diane tried to destroy. Asset recovery proceedings succeeded in returning $101,000 to Bryn's trust fund. Combined with the $94,000 remaining, Bryn has $195,000 for college and her future. Not the full amount Diane stole, but enough to build on. The Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho chapters of Iron Brotherhood MC established a program called Angel's Watch 6 months after Bryn's rescue. It trains community members to recognize signs of financial exploitation, child endangerment, and elder abuse. The program has expanded to 23 counties across Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and North Dakota. In 16 months, it's helped identify 14 cases of guardian abuse, 9 cases of elder financial exploitation, and 27 at-risk youth who needed intervention before situations became critical. Bryn graduates from Red Pine High School this spring. She's been accepted to Montana State University for fall semester with a partial scholarship. She's majoring in social work with a focus on child protective services. She wants to become a CPS caseworker, the kind who asks follow-up questions, the kind who verifies documentation, the kind who listens to kids even when the adults in the room have better paperwork. She volunteers at Red Pine Library every Saturday. Same library where she spent those 13 months trying to stay warm, trying to survive. Dorothy Henderson retired last year, but Bryn still sees her. They have coffee once a month. Dorothy hugs her every time. And Bryn carries business cards now. Simple white cards with her name, email, and one sentence. If you need help, someone will believe you. She leaves them in library books, in school bathrooms, on community bulletin boards, anywhere a desperate person might find them, because she remembers what it felt like to write 18 notes and hope just one person would care. That purple hoodie Bryn wore for 13 months, the one that hung on her shrinking frame, the one that smelled like fear and survival. She donated it to Montana Youth Services Transitional Housing Program. Not because she wanted to forget. Memory matters, even when it's painful. But because she wanted someone else to know that the hoodie they're wearing now isn't the hoodie they'll wear forever. That hunger ends. That cold doesn't last. That being invisible can be shattered by one person who decides to look. The new jacket Bryn wears is bright red. Warm. Fitted. Impossible to miss. She wants to be seen now. And she wants other people to know they deserve to be seen too. If this story moved you, subscribe to Gentle Bikers and hit that notification bell. Share stories of courage, justice, and people who refuse to look away when someone needs help. Comment below. Have you ever been someone's flint? Or have you needed someone to believe you? Share your story. You never know who needs to hear it. And if you know someone who's invisible right now, who's struggling and scared and trying to survive, share this video. Let them know that rescue is possible, that people care, that they matter, because Bryn's story isn't rare. It's just rarely told. More stories of protection and justice coming soon. Until then, pay attention. Ask questions. Believe people. And be someone's reason to hope.